Alright guys, so what's going on? I told you guys I was going to make a couple discussion videos over the next week while we were waiting for school to end so we can get back on to doing modifications and that sort of thing. But I decided today that I want to do a video on a topic that I kind of discuss naturally a lot, so I thought I kind of had some fun making this list. So I thought I would just make a video about it because it was kind of fun for me. And anyway, so the topic of this video is going to be my favorite 10 Mustangs of all time. Now 10, even picking 10 was really hard. So if you have one of these, a car that's outside of this 10, trust me, I had a list way larger than 10 and I cut it way down to just 10, and these cars are in by no means any order. They're just the 10 Mustangs that I personally like. I think I'm gonna put them in order of age, to be honest. So by no means is like the first one number 1, and by no means is the last one number 10. Just 10 of my favorites. And the reason I wanted to do this video was because this is something that me and my dad talk about a lot, which is the most important Mustangs and that sort of thing. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to just share my list, and leave in the comments below if you think I missed one, if you think something on my list shouldn't be there, if you disagree, if you agree with my list, let me know. Okay, so the first car I wanted to talk about was this 1965 Shelby GT350. Now this was the first car that Carroll Shelby put his stamp of approval on. This is like the first production Shelby, so to speak. So already have the significance there. It's basically like a race car for the street at the time. You have the 306 motor in it. It's like better brakes, better suspension, all that type of stuff. So really, that's an important car for obvious reasons as a Shelby. As you're gonna see throughout my list, as I have quite a few Shelbys on there, and they're good cars, and that was kind of the start of Shelby. And coming in that blue and the white colorway, I think is just a beautiful car to look at. Alright, so this next one is one that I didn't know which one to include. Okay, so first 1967, I really like that newer body style with the refresh, but I decided that I want to go with the 1967 Shelby GT500. Now, for people around my age, I guess, so I would say from the second Gone in 60 Seconds movie, you know the Eleanor Shelby GT500 and how beautiful looking a car that is. And honestly, this is the only car that's really on there for just how beautiful it looks, because to me that is one of the best looking Mustangs. It's that 1967 Shelby GT500. The lines on that thing are just amazing, with the racing lines and everything. I think it's just a really cool car, so that's why it's on the list. So the next one that I wanted to talk about is the 1968 Bullitt Mustang. So in the green from the movie, the Bullitt movie, with the famous chase scene, that's a lot of people will tell you is the best chase scene in any movie ever, which I think that definitely it could be true. It was definitely one of the first really good ones. So, but anyways, so Steve McQueen drove this car, and that's kind of what makes it so cool, is this chase scene, and Steve McQueen drove it, and I believe it had the 390 in it, the 68 Bullitt Mustang. So just a cool car in general. For that reason, I would like to own one of those for sure. It's a cool place in history for sure. Alright, so the next ones I wanted to talk about are the Boss Mustangs, from 69 to 70. I didn't know if I should put the 302 and the 429 to be separate, so I just decided let's condense it into one Mustang, because it made my list, shrinking down the list a little bit easier, because it would have been hard for me to choose between which bosses to leave in and which is to leave out. So from 69 to 70, we had the Boss 302s and the Boss 429s. For me personally, I prefer the 1969 look with the 4 headlights over the 70 with just the 2. But both are obviously beautiful looking cars. So for the Boss 302, that was really to compete with the Camaro at the time. That had the 302 Windsor block in it with the 351 Cleveland heads. So it was a really the motor was breathing really well. It was just a really good motor for the time to really compete with the stuff that Chevy was doing with the Camaro, because the 289 that Ford had was not cutting it. So they built that car, the Boss 302. It was actually to compete in the Trans Am series as well. That's why they went with the 302, the 5-liter engine, so they could compete in that. And I believe there was about 1,600 of those made over the course of 2 years. So right away, it was a collectible car. And then from 69 and 70 as well, they had the Boss 429, the Boss 9, whatever you want to. The Boss 9 is what people like to call it. But that was one of, well, to that point was the biggest motor that we had ever seen in a Mustang. And it was kind of like a misunderstood car. It was really heavy in the front from how big the engine was. And it was kind of like a show of force almost for Ford that they could put that in. It was known as the semi-Hemi, really to compete with the stuff that they were going on over there at Mopar. So Carcraft, basically, they took stock Mustangs off the line, and then they would remove like the shock towers and stuff and just cram in that huge engine, and ended up being like a really cool car. I think there's only 1,358 is what I believe I read earlier, made over the 2 years. And honestly, just a cool car. You don't see them very often, and definitely have a place with the size of that engine. It definitely has a place on my list. For this next one is actually the car that I'm sitting on. It's for the 84 to 86 SVOs, but in particular the 85.5s and the 86s, because they have the headlights, the proper headlight that they wanted to put in the whole time, rather than this. The 84 and the 85 have the sunken in headlight, and I don't think it looks as good. But regardless, if you don't know what the SVO Mustang is, SVO was the old like SVT almost. I think it stands for Special Vehicle Operations, and it was basically like the SVT of the time. So for this car, they put out a 4-cylinder turbocharged Mustang, which was at the time like really revolutionary. Less weight in the front. It's a better handling car than the V8. Top end, it's a little bit quicker than the V8, and it was actually more expensive than the V8 at the time, which is why they didn't really sell well. I think there was less than 10,000 came out over those 3 years. So that's why they ended up getting rid of it. But in terms of place in Mustang history, it definitely has one. It's a unique car, not that many made. Definitely a desirable car for people who enjoy the Fox bodies, which is, for some, the most popular generation of Mustangs right now. Alright, so for the next one is also a Fox body, and this is going to be the 1993 SVT Cobra. So this is the first SVT Cobra car, and we're going to have, the next few are going to be SVT cars. I'm a big fan of that era of Mustang, and you're going to see that with my list. So this was the inaugural Cobra. It had a 235 horsepower, I believe. You guys feel free to correct me in the comments if I make any sort of wrong statistic. It was a lot to remember in my head for over 10 cars. So this is basically me going off the top. So that car had the Windsor block in it, and it was the only Cobra that came out for the Fox body Mustangs. And I think it's just a really good looking car. Obviously has a place in history, being the first Cobra that Ford ended up coming out with from the SVT division. And so it has an upgraded suspension over the GT, upgraded, I believe it has upgraded brakes it has its own motor for that one as well. So just a cool car all around. Alright, so the next one that I wanted to talk about was the 2000 Cobra R. So for those of you who don't know, in '99 they had some problems with the regular SVT Cobra, so for 2000 it was just the SVT Cobra R. And this was basically a race car for the street. It was no AC, no radio, no cruise control, just race car for the street, basically no back seat. It was only 300 of them came out that year, so it's a very desirable car, especially for, I know a lot of people my age really look back on those, because we were pretty young when they came out, and that was like the car with the red with the wing on the back. It's just a really good looking car, and in terms of collectability, only being 300, those are up there for sure, especially with that look. I think that generation is really good looking. One is also an SVT car, but it's from 2003 to 2004. I think a lot of you would be expecting this one, is the Terminator Cobra. So this is the supercharged Cobra, the New Edge SVT car, and it is honestly probably the meanest looking Mustang you can get. It is I've seen some of them like when they're like lowered, and it's just a mean looking car, and you can, with like a Kenny Bell supercharger, you can get those things up to 6, 7, 800 wheel horsepower, no problem. That's like, honestly, that would be my dream build right there, is to build a Terminator Cobra. Those cars are super cool. I believe they had 385 horsepower from the factory, and it's just a super cool car. SVT cars are really cool for me, and that is the SVT car in my opinion. It's just, and it also has the IRS in it, which is pretty cool as well. So something to note there as well. So into the next one is the 2013 Shelby GT500. So this is kind of like the last show of the live actual high horsepower cars, because after this we're going into the S550 generation. So we have the 660 horsepower Shelby GT500, which they say could go over 200 miles an hour. I know Motor Trend at the time said that they couldn't get it to go over 200 miles an hour, but I'm sure it's possible. I don't know. Maybe their press car was a little bit not as fast and it was less powerful. But anyways, just 200 miles an hour. It's basically supercar territory with that top speed. So that's really crazy out of a Mustang, and it is the most powerful Mustang up until this point, so it has to be on the list for that reason. It's just an all-around cool car. Maybe it's a little bit, some people say it's a little bit too much power, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a really cool car. And last but not least is the Shelby GT350R, like the 2015 ones. Those, as I'm sure everyone knows because of how recent they are, very desirable car, selling for way over sticker at the dealers, big dealer markup. It's the one. The GT350 is also a very cool car, but it's still, the 350R has more of the track focused things on it. Both of them share the same motor. It's the 5.2 liter flat plane crank motor, which makes an absolutely ridiculous noise. If you've ever heard it in person, it is nuts. I saw GT350R going to a meet last year, and it was just hearing the thing. The guy wasn't even pushing it, and it was just the sound that comes out of that thing. It honestly sounds like a Ferrari or something. Like, it doesn't sound like any other Mustang. It's crazy. GT350R with the wing on the back, it looks so mean. I love this generation of Mustangs. No back seat. It has the upgraded suspension, upgraded brakes. It's one of the, I believe it's the only production car with carbon fiber wheels. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that's the case. So all around, just a very, very cool car. If you could get one that's sticker, then that's amazing, because that is totally worth the money. There are just some of the coolest cars you can buy right now. So anyways, that was my list. As I said before, let me know if your list differs, if you didn't like my list. Make sure to subscribe. I don't usually do these type of videos, but for Mustangs, I just thought it would be so fun to do one. So be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment, and I'll see you guys next time.